Hello, hello. Welcome back to Let's Talk HP Lovecraft. If you've not yet subscribed to our channel, please take a moment to do that now. All right, so we are rolling on through these final stories by HP Lovecraft and others. This one was written by Lovecraft with Henry S. Whitehead in 1930, but it wasn't published until 1946. If you're new to the channel, the way that these reviews work is I do a brief synopsis of what happens in the story, all the action, and then sort of some brief feelings at the end, what it all means, how I feel about it, was it a good story, is it worth your time to read? That way you don't have to read it for yourself, I guess. Synopsis: a man named Meredith in New York City, he's taking a shower, he bumps his head and gets himself a wound. He begins hearing sounds. He's in New York City, and he swears that he hears a battle, and then he swears that he hears the roar of the ocean and earthquakes, and he goes outside and there's nothing there, and there's nothing reported in the newspapers, and something's obviously up. So he goes to a doctor, but the doctor says, you're fine, no illness, but maybe you want to go get checked out by a psychiatrist. So he sends him to a psychiatrist. Psychiatrist examines him and says, you're healthy, and you're most definitely not insane. There doesn't seem to be anything wrong here, but what's going on here? And these sounds and these growing visions you're describing reminds me of a case that I experienced a couple of years ago. A case of a man named Smith. So as it progresses, these sounds turn into words, and he begins to remember words, and then he remembers entire swaths of another man's life. That man is Bothon, and he is a general in the Atlantean army, the empire of Atlantis, thousands and thousands of years ago. After putting down a massive slave revolt near the end of his career, he is promoted to sort of high general over all of the emperor's troops. And at that point, nearing the end of his career, he decides that, there's something that I really want. I want to get married, and I want to marry the emperor's niece. However, despite all the accolades of his rank, he is still a commoner, and so this is denied him. So as a response, he launches an attack on the capital city of Alu. And this has never happened in the entire multi-thousand years history of Atlantis. But just as he begins his attack, strange natural disasters begin to occur. Earthquakes, floods, fires. And it seems that a long prophesied destruction of the empire of Atlantis sinking into the sea might actually be beginning to happen. His attack's going well, but then it all falls apart, and he is captured, and he should have been crucified immediately. However, because of the severity of these disturbances, he's just thrown into a cell. He's in the cell, and he's waiting, and he knows something's going to happen pretty soon. And as predicted by him, the building collapses around him, and he's able to escape. Changing into the clothing of an imperial guard, he sneaks into the imperial residence, and he gets the girl. He gets the niece of the emperor, who actually goes away with him quite willingly, seeing the lust and the love in his eyes. She thinks this is something she wants to get in on. Fearing the imminent collapse of Atlantis sinking into the sea, two of them make plans, and they escape to the mountains. And there in the heights, they think that maybe they can survive. And then the next day when they wake up, they're walking on the beach on what looks like a small island, but which is inevitably the tops of the mountains, because everything else has sunk into the depths. Meanwhile, back in New York City, with the help of a strong sedative, Meredith, our main character, he's been kept asleep for 22 hours, and he's now been witness to the collapse of Atlantis all these thousands of years ago. The doctor, before he declares him healthy and says it's time for you to go home, he tells him about Smith, the other patient, and he says, here's a funny thing. Smith called this place that he went to Mu, and it says, do you know that name? And yes, that's what we call the mother continent of Atlantis, Mu. So that seemingly confirms that what he witnessed was real. Okay, so The positives, and this is just going to be very briefly because there's not a lot of positives. It's a fun way to tell a fictionalized, well, of course it's all fiction, I guess, but a fictionalized version of what a probable or possible fall of Atlantis is. We see this buildup of this great center for knowledge and wealth and riches and arts and all these things, and then very quickly we witness the end of it, and it coincides with this tragic love story. However, then jumping to the negatives, the writing style is just very, very tedious and overly formal, even for something with Lovecraft's name on it. And it's just so stiff, and it makes it very unenjoyable to read. Also, I think the head injury device is pretty weak for something that Lovecraft is willing to put his name on. We have plenty of occasions where, everything is sort of told in backstory and a dream and all that, but this is pretty weak. Literally bumped his head in the shower. I mean, that's pretty pathetic. You guys can do better than that. And then the big one is that the old cliche is, in writing, show don't tell, and the entire backstory of Bothon is just very, very wordy, but it's exposition in a way that is being told, literally being told, and there doesn't seem to be any attempt to sort of disguise it with actual narrative and infusing it with any sort of character development and all of that. It's very, very weak. I think the bones of a great story are here, but it's just not apparent on the page. It didn't work. It's not pulled off. This is one of those things published many years later after it was written that probably should have been revised heavily again. But I'm glad I read it. It's not the absolute worst thing that I've read with Lovecraft's name on it. But yeah, that was Bothon with Lovecraft and Henry S. Whitehead, written 1930, published in 1946. Next time, we will be looking at Ashes, written with C.M. Eddy Jr., so be sure to tune in a few days to see what that is all about. But until next time, thank you for watching, and keep it